Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Uplift with Vision. I'm Reverend Patti Paris. I'm here to guide you through another discussion about what Ernest Holmes had to say. But before we do that, let's pray in. Take that deep breath and just ground in that energy which is God. We know that that energy is already around us, that it upholds us, that it uplifts us, that it surrounds us in its love and its grace and its joy. We know that there is no place we can go to be outside or absent of the energy which is God. It's unheard of. There is no place that is absent of spirit. We know that that energy that we call God exists everywhere simultaneously. So wherever we're sitting right now, we are seated at the heart of God. And so I know that as we recognize this, spirit just holds the light high for us and we move forward on this spiritual path, on this thing called life, uncovering for ourselves and revealing for ourselves our next step along the way on this journey of awakening. So I give this time over to Spirit. I allow it to be. I know it is all God. I know it is all good. And so it is. Amen. So welcome to another Uplift. I'm so happy that you're joining me. I just love doing this work. I'm so glad that you're joining in with me and providing me with words to research, because I love doing that work. And it's so interesting to see what Ernest Holmes had to say about, whatever that word is that you send in. So let's get right to it. Today's is actually a phrase. Someone asked, what did Ernest Holmes have to say about race consciousness? And now that's an interesting phrase, and Ernest Holmes used it quite frequently. There was a lot of information about race consciousness. He called it by several different names. He called it race consciousness. Human race is what he's talking about, the human race consciousness. He's not talking about any particular race of people, but he used the word race to mean the human race, all of us. So this is human race consciousness. He also called it race mind or race suggestion, however whatever is comfortable for you to use. He used those terms interchangeably. But here is what he said in the Science of Mind textbook. He said of race mind: it is the sum total of all human belief throughout the ages, the collective unconscious race belief or race suggestion. And so this is the idea that everything that humans ever thought is found there. That it is the sum total of all human race thoughts and ideas, limited, unlimited, scarcity, abundant, everything that the human race has ever thought of. Almost like, I know some philosophies talk about the Akashic records, right? So something similar to that, in which there is all of this thought, all of it is in this one place called human race consciousness. This is the universal subjective mind. Ernest Holmes used to call it that as well, right? This is the place where every thought, every human ever thought is there. This is the place that we draw from, or this is the place that we actually allow to flow through us when we're not doing our own thinking. Human race thinking is doing our thinking for us. So it is the repository of all human thought. And Ernest Holmes goes on in the Science of Mind to say this. This is from page 197. Although man, he used, remember he used the masculine gender because that's what was popular at the time, is that whenever they used a pronoun, it was always the masculine gender. So he says, although man is inherently a perfect idea, his individuality covers this idea with forms of thought which he imagines. Man comes into this life subjective to race consciousness and to his own environment. He unfolds his own personality and begins to create new subjective thought. He thinks, he observes, he draws certain conclusions and deductions and incorporates them within his own mentality until at last they become a part of the relative cause of his objective existence. Let me say that again, right? He incorporates all of that, his own thoughts, his own conclusions through his own context, and they become a part of the relative cause of his objective existence. So we are free to think whatever we want, but we experience life. We try things, we do things, we get results, we get feedback, right, from what we do. We get the effect of our own cause, and then we draw conclusions based on that. We create beliefs based on those conclusions, and those beliefs then begin to outpicture on a regular basis. They become our experience of life. And that sums it up perfectly, that quote that Ernest Holmes wrote in the Science of Mind textbook. He also called it race thought, right? Race thought. And this is another way of expressing race suggestion. The way to protect oneself from it is by knowing it cannot operate through him, by knowing that he cannot be affected by suggestion. Now, this is important because this tells us we are not subject to human race consciousness. We fall into it. We go in unconscious. We kind of go unconscious, and we allow human race thought to flow through us. We don't question what we believe. Maybe our beliefs were handed down to us by our parents, or by our culture, or by the town or the state in which we live. There are certain accepted judgments and accepted mores that we follow. And maybe we didn't question them. But Ernest Holmes said how important it is, right, to reverse our position in the law. And this is what he's talking about, questioning that human race suggestion or the human race mind or human race thought. To question it, because to question it is to reverse our position in the law. If the human race thought was trending a certain way and we got caught up in the flow and we just went along with it, what is that saying Terry McBride always used to say, only dead fish go with the flow? It's true, right? But Ernest Holmes said it's up to us to reverse our position in the law. We must go against this. We must question human race consciousness and make our own decisions about whether or not we're going to buy into it, I think about things like what we hear on TV or what we hear on the radio. Like here we are going into the fall. It's October, right? It's cold and flu season. Better stock up, Stock up on your Tylenol or stock up on your NyQuil or whatever, because it is cold and flu season. That's human race thought. That is human race suggestion, that we must fall ill because it's the autumn. That's simply not truth. It is just human race suggestion. And that's what Ernest Holmes is saying. Question that. Question that. Or question when you were growing up and you were struggling maybe with mathematics as a grammar school student, and your mother or your father may have said to you, "Oh, I was terrible at math, so you're going to struggle your whole life too." That was not truth. That was human race suggestion. That was one of your parents passing down to you one of their false beliefs or limiting thoughts. And then we take it on as truth, and we begin to outpicture that experience because we've accepted it without question. That's human race thought flowing through our experience of life. But Ernest Holmes said this. No, there's good news. Because Ernest Holmes says this: if God created you after its own image, and there's nothing else it could have made you out of, then the thing that you are after is already within you. So that's the good news, isn't it? That idea that we hold of spirit being whole, perfect, and complete, that is the truth of you, not human race consciousness, not what flows through group mind or universal subjective. What's true for us is that spirit is within us. He goes on to say this: the only things that stand between you and it are the accumulated thoughts, beliefs, and emotions of the centuries. But there's nothing that has been put there, either by yourself or by the human race, and what has been put there can be removed. Of course, because the human race consciousness, that repository of all of those beliefs, they're false, they're true, they're any number of things, right? They're all the thoughts of the human race. Of course they can be removed. We're the ones who put them there, right? The human race put those thoughts in subjective mind. We're the only ones that can change them. He goes on to say this: those false beliefs are thought patterns laid down through the ages and accentuated by our own experience, by our own inherited tendencies and environment. However, there's no use wasting time speculating what avenue they came through. Your job is to reject them. Hey, that's real easy. We know how to do that, right? Our job is to reject them. He goes on to say, this great thing within you, which is called will or choice, can decide your destiny. It can remove every obstruction and gradually implant new patterns in mind. And this is why Ernest Holmes always said, change your thinking, change your life. Because we are free. We are free. We are free to change our thoughts. We are free to change what we believe is true for us. We are free to question what we've been given by our parents, by our grandparents, by our family, by our culture, by our neighborhood, right? By our race, you know. We are free to question that. We're free to always question what we allow to flow through us through race suggestion and say, whoa, wait a minute. Is that true for me? Is that true for the me I am today? Because if it's not, I want to change it for something that supports the me that I am today. The more self-actualized me, the greater spiritual me that I am evolving into. You know, I hear people all the time say, oh yeah, you know, it's getting to be fall again, and you know, every winter I get bronchitis. Really? That's a human race thought. That's just race suggestion. That's not the truth of you. That's an experience you had. And it may be an experience you had on a regular basis. You have an out picturing and you create a rule around it, right? And that rule limits your ability to manifest anything new, because now you're saying, oh, I get bronchitis every winter, or I get pneumonia every winter, or I have bad lungs and I get the flu every winter. All of those things are rules that we have arbitrarily made up based on the past. And what do we know is true about spirit? We absolutely know that principle, which is spirit, right? Principle is not bound by precedent. And precedent just simply means anything that has come before. So spirit is not bound by any previous experience you've ever had. It does not necessarily have to outpicture just because it outpictured that way previously. So just because you've experienced bronchitis 2 or 3 or 10 times over the past 10 years every winter doesn't mean this winter must be the same. Spirit is not bound by anything that came before it. Spirit doesn't care how many winters you came down with bronchitis. Spirit knows only wholeness. So pulling yourself out of human race consciousness, pulling yourself out of that tendency to repeat and repeat and repeat, Ernest Holmes said, with monotonous regularity, what has come before. Have a new thought this winter. Have a new thought this fall. Have a new thought about your lungs. Have a new thought about virus. Have a new thought about health. Know that you are spirit informed, and spirit doesn't get bronchitis. It just doesn't. Spirit doesn't get ill. Spirit doesn't have struggles with pneumonia or the flu. And the truth of us is that we are pure spirit. So whatever came before is irrelevant. What you plant into human race consciousness now, what you plant into the law now is what's important. Because that is what's going to outpicture in a day or a week or a month or 6 months from now. That is the truth of us, is that we get to choose. We get to choose. We are not stuck in human race consciousness. We are not stuck in that flow. We are not dead fish. Let's pray out. Giving great thanks for this time spent together, exploring these topics with such joy, with such understanding, with such enthusiasm. I know and accept truth when I hear it. And I know that each and every one of us understands truth when we hear it as well. I know that principle is the life force within us. This energy, which is God expressing through us and as us in the world, is whole and perfect and complete and everything that we are. And so I know as we identify with wholeness, as we identify with health, as we identify with prosperity, as we identify with joy, we demonstrate that. We become the outpicturing. We become the avenue through which spirit can demonstrate all of those qualities. And I give great thanks for that. I know this is the truth for us. I know it is the truth right here, right now. I know as we walk this walk of spiritual unfoldment, of spiritual enlightenment, I know we demonstrate the same. Giving great thanks for this time spent together, I simply let it be. And so it is. Thanks for joining me again this beautiful, beautiful Tuesday. Remember, tomorrow at 1 o'clock, there will be another edition of the Uplift. We'll have a guest speaker like we do every Wednesday. I don't know who it is going to be, or I would let you know, but I want you to make sure you're there, right? Make sure you are there to support all of our guests, all of our wonderful and lovely practitioners who come to talk to us on Wednesdays. And then I'll see you again on Thursday. Have a wonderful week. Have a wonderful day. From my heart to yours, Vision, we are one. I hope you feel that like I feel it. Right through this technology, right through the separation of the sheltering at home, I know there's only one. So, just being so thankful for that. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.